Okay, so what in the world does a tiny solar-powered sea slug have to do with a supercomputer? And what do either of them have to do with the way you see the world? Well, it turns out, everything. They all work on this universal principle of hacking the system and, funnily enough, being blind to certain hacks themselves. Let's get into it.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Could we ever be solar-powered? It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? Imagine just, stepping outside into the sun to get all the energy you need for the day. No more groceries, no more meals, just pure sunlight. And while that might sound completely crazy for us, there's one little creature on this planet that has already found a kind of biological loophole.
Meet the emerald green sea slug, Elysia chlorotica. This little guy is, and I'm not kidding, a true biological hacker. It doesn't just eat plants. In a very real way, it becomes one. It can run on solar power for months at a time. It is an absolutely incredible evolutionary shortcut.
So how does it pull off this magic trick? The process is called kleptoplasty, which literally means theft of plastids, and it's as wild as it sounds. The slug eats algae, digests everything except for the tiny solar-powered engines inside, the chloroplasts, and then it just integrates them right into its own body. It's biological Grand Theft Auto. It's Grand Theft Chloroplast.
Okay, so that immediately begs the question, why can't we do this? Could we just eat enough kale or spinach and slowly body morph into solar-powered beings? Well, unfortunately, no. There are 3 massive biological hurdles that we just can't seem to get over.
First off, the sheer math is working against us. We can call this the tennis court problem. You see, an average human burns around 2,000 calories a day, just by existing. Photosynthesis, on the other hand, it's incredibly inefficient. To generate that much energy from the sun, you would need a skin surface area about the size of a tennis court. We are simply way too big and way too energy hungry compared to a tiny, slow-moving sea slug.
And okay, let's say we solved the size problem. Even then, our own bodies would immediately fight back. This is the immune rejection problem. If you tried to put chloroplasts into your bloodstream, your immune system would immediately see them as foreign invaders and just destroy them. So, without some crazy advanced AI implant releasing the perfect gene soup to rewrite our biology from the inside out, our bodies would reject the very hack we're trying to install.
So the biological hack, it's a no-go for us. But this fundamental process, taking a raw input like sunlight and converting it into a stable output like sugar, isn't just a biological thing. It is a universal model for how any complex system operates, whether we're talking about a sea slug or a massively powerful AI.
This whole idea is captured perfectly by a core principle from cybernetics called the good Regulator Theorem. Now, I know it sounds super complex, but the concept is actually pretty simple. To control any system, you have to have a model of that system. Think about it. A thermostat has a very simple model of temperature in your house. Your brain, on the other hand, has a much more complex model of the world around you.
But here's the catch, and this is the really important part. The very act of creating that model, of filtering all of reality down to just what's important, means you have to ignore everything else. This filtering, it's not a flaw in the system, it's a necessary feature. But it also guarantees that every single control system has a built-in blind spot.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the core idea. In biology, a virus can hide from an immune system by evolving to look just like one of the body's own cells. We call this molecular mimicry. In cybernetics, a signal can hide from a control system by perfectly matching the system's own internal noise or operations. It is the exact same principle, just in a different context. The system is blind to anything that mimics its own structure.
This quote just nails it. An echo chamber literally cannot hear echoes that match its own frequency. Why? Because that echo just becomes part of the room's natural hum. It gets absorbed, unregistered. A system that's designed to find patterns can't detect a pattern that looks exactly like its own internal noise. Okay, so a slug's body is blind to a stolen solar panel it actually needs, and a supercomputer is blind to a perfectly matching signal. They both have these inherent blind spots. So, what happens when we take this universal law and apply it to the biggest, messiest, most complex system of all, human culture?
Well, the media theorist Marshall McLuhan explained this decades ago with his famous Rearview Mirror principle. He said that we can't truly see the world that we're living in right now because our perception is always shaped by the world that just came before it. In a way, the present is literally invisible to us.
And this is a really profound idea. The old world doesn't just vanish. It sticks around. like a cultural after-image, almost like a hologram that we project onto the new world. This hologram is so powerful that it forces us to see the present only through the lens of the immediate past.
And believe it or not, this isn't just some poetic metaphor. Researchers have actually tried to quantify this after-image effect. For instance, they found they could reconstruct the worldview of a past era with about 73% accuracy just by analyzing its media. They've even measured this tiny 47-millisecond lag in our collective brain activity. That's the time it takes for us to consciously recognize a new cultural shift. That is the rearview mirror in action.
Let's look at a huge historical example. Before the alphabet, human culture was oral. Information was acoustic, simultaneous, something you experienced all at once, in a group. The alphabet changed absolutely everything. It took that holistic, all-at-once world of sound and shattered it into tiny, visual, linear pieces, letters on a page. This fundamentally rewired human perception itself, creating a more detached, one-thing-at-a-time way of thinking.
So if the literate world couldn't see its own fragmented nature because it was still looking back at the oral culture it replaced, what does our blind spot look like today? What can't we see as we move from a world of print and broadcast into a completely digital one?
We're seeing it play out right now in the huge debate over so-called slop. This is a term people use to describe this massive explosion of rapid, often AI-assisted digital content we see everywhere online. The old system, the one built on the logic of print, values polished, specialized, finished work that's delivered to a passive audience. It looks at this new wave of participatory, nonlinear, constantly shifting content and can only see it as chaos or slop.
But as this quote suggests, this isn't really an argument about taste or what's good or bad. The contempt for slop is the sound of a system in a full-blown panic. It's the reaction of an old guard whose entire model of reality is based on controlling the flow of information, suddenly realizing that their control is just dissolving into thin air.
And here's the crucial point. The cultural gatekeepers are stuck looking in that rearview mirror. They're trying to apply the old rules of print and broadcast media to a new digital environment that operates on a totally different logic. They literally cannot see the new world for what it actually is because they're blinded by the after-image of the world that's already gone.
And that brings us right back to where we started, from a sea slug's immune system being blind to a stolen chloroplast to our entire cultural system being blind to new forms of media. The law is universal. Any system that controls its environment has to develop a necessary blind spot to anything that perfectly mimics its own internal structure.
And that, of course, leaves us with one final, pretty unavoidable question. If our entire way of seeing the world is a system, one that's designed to filter reality, and if every system is fundamentally blind to its own reflection, what part of reality are we completely unable to see right now? What is our blind spot?